This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by ImageTrend. Learn how you can finish NFIRS reports before you get back to the station at imagetrend.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamzow. I am a fire lieutenant from somewhere up north around Wisconsin. I'm also a writer here for Firefighters Want, and I write for a very special individual who is, the one who really runs this podcast behind the scenes, and she is the editor-in-chief of Firefighters Want. I like to call her the commander, Janelle Fosquet. Janelle, before we get into it today, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm very fired up for today's show.
Ooh, fired up. That's a new one. So everybody who's listening knows there's some good stuff coming. And she is fired up for a reason. It's because we finally have Fire Chief Darryl Jones, who is the City of Pittsburgh Fire Bureau Chief. Chief, welcome to the show. How are you today, sir? And thanks for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well.
Now I got to dig into where are you from?
Originally from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, which is a small town outside of Pittsburgh, a population of about 11,000. I did 20 years there in the Aliquippa Fire Department, 12 of those years as chief. I was one of 9 people on the department. And in 2007, I came up to the city of Pittsburgh in July as an assistant chief, and I was elevated to chief in September of that year. So right now I am starting my 18th year with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire.
Congratulations on that, by the way. And Aliquippa is known for its NFL legends, I believe. Plus, maybe I am knowledgeable enough to know. I think Ty Law, is it Dick Butkus was from there, and Tony Dorsett.
Yes. Mike Ditka.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Ty Law, Darrell Rivas, and believe it or not, shout out to MJ Devonshire, who is my cousin and was just drafted by the Nevada Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, as a defensive back. So, like I said, there's a small town, and if you would see it, we have out of 5 square miles, 11,000 people. To have 4 people in the NFL Hall of Fame is like almost unheard of. And as I tell everybody, I should have been drinking the water there instead of fighting fire with it, and I might have made it to the NFL myself.
So, Chief, the NFL did not come calling for you, but you obviously have made a great impact in the fire service. Did you ever think you would get to where you are now?
No, actually, I had no plans on being a firefighter at all. I had just recently been discharged from the Marine Corps, and I was working as a security guard at a nuclear power plant in Beaver County. And as a security guard, I was armed with a nightstick, one of those little small cans of mace like you keep on your keychain, a radio, and a 3-ring binder that had my post orders in it. And it didn't take me long to figure out that my job was to scream into that radio as part of the alarm system before the terrorists killed me. So I have a little more self-worth than that. But so that was just a miserable job. And one day I saw the Aliquippa Fire Department was hiring, and I knew they had a paid department. It was actually a combination department at the time. And I figured, wow, I could get that job, and then I could finish college, because while those guys are playing checkers and watching TV, I can study, and every once in a while I get to drive the truck. How cool is that? And that was my mentality when I signed up for the service. Long story short, eventually did get on as a career firefighter in August of 1987. Had my first aha moment on October the 10th of 1987, when I responded to a structural fire with entrapment, and we lost 3 children. At that fire, the media made it sound like I was some kind of a hero for my efforts, but I was carrying a ton of guilt, a whole lot of guilt with me. And It kind of manifested itself in some heavy drinking. I had two great counselors, Jack Daniels and Jim Beam. They didn't talk a lot, but they eased the pain. And one day, my dad grabbed me and says, "Man, you need to have a talk." Like, okay, and he's like, "What's going on with you?" And there were some other things going on in my life at that time where I was in a pretty dark spot. And he asked, so I unloaded. I just vomited all over the man, all this stuff, and he helped me get myself back together and get straight. And what I came to the conclusion was, here is Aliquippa, this small, poor town, the buckle of the Rust Belt for all intents and purposes, and a town that could not afford to have a career department, but at the same time, due to the fire load, couldn't afford not to have one. And they're paying me with their hard-earned limited resources, and I failed them. So don't let this happen again. And that was my moment where I transitioned and started really working hard on training, on leadership. I eventually received a terminal degree. Didn't get that till I come to Pittsburgh, but that's been my driving, motivating factor. Why are we losing these children in fires? And it hasn't changed much. On Valentine's Day of 1991, I lost 5 kids and 1 adult in a fire, and that was a gut punch as well. So yeah, there's been a lot going on in my. That was my triggers, though. My as they say, my why has changed. We all have one. It started off being such a great adrenaline rush. To arrive on scene, stretch that line, attack, go in, mask up, attack the scene of the fire. Wow, there was nothing greater than that. The only thing I can imagine might come close is riding with the Blue Angels or somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that adrenaline rush changed when maybe a little maturity and recognition of some responsibility. And there's nothing worse than maybe handling a dead child, even if it's not yours. You know what I mean? So that's part of what drove it.
Yeah. So in 91, you're kind of at that point had dedicated, it sounds like, every day to being better, every shift. Were you able to handle that situation in 91 a little bit better then?
Well, that situation in 91 was the first time I was introduced to a critical incident stress debriefing team out of the University of Pittsburgh Presby Hospital. I met a man there. His name was Battalion Chief Kalinda. He was with Pittsburgh at the time. And okay, it was good. I felt some positives out of that, but 91 was just the beginning of things for me. 94, I responded to the U.S. Air Flight 427. I was a captain in the Aliquippa Fire Department at the time, and my engine was the first unit on scene for that airliner crash. And then in spring of 95, I became chief in Aliquippa and responded to a very bad motor vehicle accident, and recognized that I was having some problems and called the critical incident stress debriefing team to come help me, to give me some help. And they sent Chief Kalinda. Well, the kicker is, on Valentine's Day of 1995, Chief Kalinda lost his son and 2 other firefighters in Pittsburgh on Bryceland Street. So now here's this man who lost his son coming down to talk to me about a car accident. I didn't lose anything in that car accident, maybe a little bit of my mind, but that was it. And I was so embarrassed that I was like, Chief, you got so much going on. I really feel like a wimp just bothering you about this. And that's not the way this works. I'm coming out there, we're going to have lunch. And I never forgot that. And when I got into Pittsburgh and made it to chief, he came and he visited me and congratulated me on this move. And I feel a special bond to him and his family for what they went through. But that was, there's been some times where there's been some mental stresses. And back in that day, if you said PTSD and you were not a Vietnam veteran who had seen combat, you were considered a fraud or just soft or something like that. So a lot of that was internalized at the time. I'm glad we're getting past that now because I have been diagnosed with PTSD stemming from that October fire and only complicated by other incidents.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing it because I think that says something about your path and who you are. How is that transferred to you being a better leader?
Empathy is in a word. And I think that's one of the major characteristics of leadership is empathy. And don't forget now, when I come to Pittsburgh, I come from this little 9-man department to a department of around 700. Okay. I'm the first minority that had the position of chief. Most guys figured I hadn't seen any fire. I was referenced many times as Pittsburgh's EEOC fire chief. Okay. That trail, that's one of those things that I am just now fighting my way around. I really am, because I had the imposter syndrome where I had to prove to myself every day that I earned this, and it's me to lose my family. It's just, if I had it to do all over again, I would stand up on top of the USX Tower, which is the 60 some odd story building here in Pittsburgh, and hold up both hands with only one finger showing and let them know exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
But, that's water over the dam now. And the only thing I could do now is just move forward from where I am. So I have my scars. If I was to go through the list of injuries, being in the fire department, they are extensive. If I was still riding on a rig, I would either be crippled or retired by now. Mm-hmm. So just having a desk job is helpful. But I do carry a lot of that experience with me so I can still identify with the guys. And here in Pittsburgh, it took some time before they recognized that I wasn't the enemy and that I had their interests and the Bureau's best interests at heart. And we've been able to move forward. It hasn't been easy, but we've been able to do it. And in that time, I've studied leadership. I've graduated with my doctors in public safety. I'm a graduate of the Executive Fire Officer Program. I have attended leadership seminars from the National Preparedness Leadership Initiative at Harvard and other programs like that. And by my books that in the article, when Janelle sent me a draft of the article, I gave it to my executive assistant and said, "What do you think of this?" And she read it. She comes back, she hands it to me, says, "Yeah, you're a bookworm."
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't help myself. Truman said, "Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders must be readers." And I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And every book that I have not read is full of information that I don't know. And there's a lot of books out there, right? And then the beauty of part of it, instead of just being an academic that's studying on this and reading and talking about this, is I have the lab here in the city of Pittsburgh with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire and the Office of Emergency Management and the Department of Public Safety to test these things out. They don't all work, by the way, but yeah.
What, meaning like you test out the leadership theory and practice with them?
Yes, I do. So, and some of them I know how I've been treated, right? I can recognize a toxic leader from a mile away. I had this one boss, everything was, if you don't do it, you're getting fired. You don't do it, I'm going to fire you. So he just caught me on a short day, which I have those occasionally. And I looked at him and said, "Go ahead and fire me." And then he found out that he couldn't fire me. So you want to know what happened after that? Absolutely nothing. I did nothing for about a month. He would come to my door, "Do you have that done yet?" "No." "When are you going to get it done?" "Not today. And tomorrow ain't looking too good either. I'll get back to you." And eventually I had to do some work because somebody who could fire me would, but I just wanted to drive that twist the knife a little bit, You're not going to intimidate me or anything, but don't do that. I don't want that type of relationship. I don't want that transactional relationship, that you give me this, I'm going to give you that relationship, because that can quickly slip into that toxic leadership. And that's not going to work, and I'm also learning to mature myself, to control my emotions, not to get angry, or emotional about things. Stop and think for a second before you open your mouth. That would have saved me gobs of grief if I had learned that back in my 20s or even in my teens, But one of the books I read is by Ryan Holiday, and he says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. So it's basically never too late to try.
Is that ego is the enemy?
Not that one. I think that one is Courage is Calling. Maybe.
Okay.
I have ego as the enemy on the list. I didn't get that.
That's good. Yeah, he's a good writer. He actually does a newsletter every month where he's like, this is what I'm reading and this is what I'm trying to work on and develop, and very insightful. But I think it brings up a really good point, Chief. Like you've been through a lot of stuff through your career, and it seems like you've done both paths. You went down the path of I'm just going to drink it away, and it sounds like you had a mentor, someone who had kind of put you under their wing and said, this isn't you. You got to get better. But to those listening, mentors sometimes just seem to be there and you may not recognize it. It kind of explain the importance of mentorship. And, in the fire service, for anybody listening who thinks that they can't make an impact, right? I think mentorship is it's a wide spectrum of things we could all kind of take from, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, because the misconception is I did this all by myself. I worked hard and look what I did. Well, I did work hard, but I got a break. I was asked to apply for the assistant chief's position here in Pittsburgh because I was going through the assessment process for a different organization. And one of the assessors was the then chief of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire. So I got a break. I got this from this little 9-man department. I got somebody who gave me a chance. So yes, that's first, number one. Hopefully somebody will give you a chance. But the other thing is you have to be prepared for that. Where preparation meets opportunity, great things happen. And when I talk to young people about moving ahead, moving forward, I am not the exception to the rule. Okay, anybody can do it. Like I said, room temperature IQ, just kept applying myself. Okay, so if I want to catch a train, I'm not going to find a train at the corner of Fifth Avenue and Smithfield Street downtown. I got to get to the train station. And me traveling to the train station is preparation, taking the courses, completing the EFO, doing the readings, doing the studies, questioning other things, taking an opposing view to what I might believe and trying to see the other person's opposing view. All of that got me to the point where, hey, I made it to the station and here comes opportunity. And the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire was that opportunity. And when my preparation met with that opportunity, great things happened. And yes, I had mentors on the way. I had the old bristly guy when I started in Aliquippa. His only thing was, do you know your streets? And he drilled me on streets, drilled me on the procedure for making sure I had water coming out of that engine. That fire where we lost those 3 kids, the mother wasn't home. We end up in court. I'm getting grilled on the stand because they knew I had only been on the job 2 months, and they were coming after me with all the questions they could to show that I was incompetent, and that's what caused these children's death. But because I had been drilled, we'll be in the station sleep. He'll wake me up in the middle of the night. Okay, we just got to run. What are we going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to choke you. That's what I'm going to do. But then I would have to give him the rundown or he wouldn't leave me alone. And so I would do it, and it helped. And so that kind of thing like that helped me in that instance. And then there was others. Probably the most well-known is Mr. Chief Munacini. I attended my first Metro Chiefs conference as the chief of the city of Pittsburgh, and I'm sitting behind this guy wearing this rumpled Hawaiian shirt and these rumpled cargo pants, look like he just slept in them, and everybody's in business casual, and I'm thinking, who is this guy? And as we're doing the introductions, he stands up and says, Alan Brunacini from Phoenix, Arizona. And the first thing I go, master, and so I walked up to him at the break. I introduced myself. I said, I'm in your pocket for the rest of the week. He said, what do you mean? I says, I'm a brand new Metro chief. You got answers. I got questions. And never once did he say, oh man, here he comes again and try to duck and dodge me. He never did that. He was just a fantastic man who took time to help me out. And so, yeah, if you give somebody your time, I think that's the most valuable resource we have. When I was a rookie firefighter in Aliquippa, went to a Beaver County Fire School, I had a malfunction of my smoke mask, and I come out the smokehouse, I'm choking, I'm coughing, I'm gagging, and my chest is hurting because I had taken all this smoke. Well, unless I completed that scenario, I wouldn't get my certificate. So this guy comes over, his name was Ellison, Chief Ellison. He came over to me, he said, look, nobody will blame you if you don't want to go back in there. He said, but I'll stick around for another 15 minutes for you to finish this exercise and you can get your certificate. Look at that 15-minute investment right now.
Right.
And Chief Ellison passed away a couple months back, and I had a chance at a public function to tell that story while he was there, him and his family, and thank him for that. Because if he wouldn't have gave me that 15 minutes, I don't know, selling ice cream somewhere maybe. I don't know what.
Yeah.
So I try to give my time. I have students email me, hey, can you take my survey? Can I interview you? Can I do this? Yes, I'm going to give that back to you. When I teach down at the National Fire Academy, I always put on the board my name, my cell phone number, my email address, and what I call office hours. I'll be at the pub from 8 o'clock to 9:30. You want to talk about it.
It's where a lot of learning happens. Yeah, a lot of bonding and a lot of learning.
That's where the meat of it happens.
Yeah, it's such a great story. Thank you for sharing that, because I think the 15 minutes can make such an impact. 5 minutes can make such an impact. Mm-hmm. Like you said, Brunacini didn't turn his back on you. He embraced it and knew he could make that impact. And I think if everyone listens to this, says, I'm going to invest 5 minutes in that person that's maybe below me, around me today. The fire service is going to be better, number one, but you also feel better about yourself, and it comes back to you, right? Like, not only was he answering your questions, but he was teaching you how to be a better leader, right? And you've had experiences of both bad leadership that you've learned from, good leadership that you've learned from. So now let's go to this article you wrote about what firefighters want. Janelle, do you want to just explain a little bit about what we did with the survey this year? And by the way, very well done on this project. So I don't want to steal your thunder. Janelle, give us a little explanation of how you got Chief to write such a great article here.
Yeah, so one of the things, this is our third year doing the What Firefighters Want annual survey. And what we saw in the first two surveys was the theme around poor agency leadership. The respondents would say is their least satisfying part of the job, and happened again this year. So I very much appreciate Chief Jones tackling this topic. One of the reasons why it was so important too is because people said that poor agency leadership was the number one reason that they saw for issues with fire department retention. So we were looking at some of these numbers, reaching out to some of our friends like Chief Jones to really dig into it and provide their analysis on what they think about some of these pretty frightening numbers. So Chief, thank you for writing such a great article for us. You can find all of it on firerescue1.com/WFW or /what firefighters want. They'll take you to the same place. We're going to be populating this page all year with more information. But this is where you can find Chief Jones's article. So with that, take it away, Chief.
Okay, so when Janelle gave me these numbers, and she's right, they were scary. I'm going to tell you the one that scared me the most. It says that 43% pointed to poor leadership at a political level. That means they're elected officials, right? And 57% chief position, 64% chief officer position. So what these numbers is telling me is that our people have more faith in our elected and appointed officials than they do us. In this political atmosphere, which is at best hostile, from the federal level all the way down to the local level, you're going to tell me that I've got more faith in this guy shaking hands, guy or girl, shaking hands, kissing babies, than I have in the people who's supposed to be leading me down that dark hallway at 0 dark 30 with flames rolling over my head. Wow. That was a gut punch to me. I was like, that's amazing. And I'm sitting there thinking about it. And I'm like, what's the reason for this? Mm-hmm. And the reason I didn't have to look far, it's us. We are the leaders, okay? And we are the American Fire Service. Yes, as the leaders, we accept this responsibility and the blame for this. You know, we need to fix this. It's our problem. It's not, it's not my fault. I inherited this. I can't control society. Okay, we get all that. That's true. But the problem is ours. And we need to attack it. And that's where I was going at with that. And by the same token, we got people who are not technically leaders. They don't wear a white helmet, red helmet, or whatever. They might wear a black helmet, but they have a role to play, and that is to follow. Because, as I said, leadership being an action verb, right? It's like loving is an action verb. There's more than one partner involved in that. So we should be more identify, I say, clearly what those roles are. And just because you're not carrying any rank does not mean you're not leading. You know, I always use this example when I talk to people. The Bronx Ben and the leather helmet, right? Who started that?
Firefighters.
Sure wasn't the commissioner of New York City, was it?
Right.
Yeah, it was some guy who, for some odd reason, some black hat, this thing was getting in his way, or it was hot and he just twisted whatever it was that he did that caused that. It's changed the whole culture of the American Fire Service. And so he wasn't a formal leader. He was an informal leader, but he had as much impact as any formal leader. So yeah, we had several problems here. And my point of my article is, look, other people have had these problems. Let's not reinvent the wheel. It's not going to get any rounder. And we might as well borrow some of the things that other industry and agencies have used who face similar problems and try to address this. But the first thing we need is, one, to be able to admit that we are the problem, accept that, and then two, attack it. Attack the problem, not the people. And I see a lot of that happening. That's tearing organizations apart.
Chief, is that what you would call the problem blindness? I like that term that you used in the article. Is that the definition, not accepting you're part of it?
Yeah, problem blindness comes from Dan Heath and Upstream, right? And basically is, I don't want to see it. It's there, but no, I don't see it. I'm looking over here. I don't want to see it. And we see that with politicians kicking the can down the road, that kind of thing. Or we know that something's possible, but we ignore it because we say, oh, what's the odds of that happening? And so we play the odds against that. And so what's the problem here? What is the root of the problem here? And there's multiple guides out there and techniques. So you can ask 5 whys. You can do this, you can do that. Yeah, get your crew together or your group together and says, hey guys, where am I falling short as a leader? This is a safe space. This is a holding space. The bugles are off. Okay, we are going to get to the root of this. And the hard part about that is when the answers come, they may sound personal, but you can't respond to them. You can't retaliate. You can't react. You take notes. You take notes. And then maybe the next meeting, there's some things that people didn't say to you because there's always a meeting after the meeting, right? And so you might have to do this 2, maybe 3 times. And when you start hearing the same stuff over and over again, then you know you're probably at the bottom of it. Let's address this. What should we attack first? Get that out the way, and work with them. You're also going to have that person who's just not going to like you, no matter what, Okay, you want to make everybody happy, go back to selling ice cream, but this is not the place for that. But what you could do is reach out to that person and say, hey, let's go to dinner. I would like to take you to dinner and talk to you. Because people seem to be a little more agreeable when they're eating. I would try to stay away from the alcohol if I could, and says, hey, what do you think about this? And whatever you two match on with some common ground, start there. And at least get that out the way. If things don't change, they're going to exit. They're going to get off of one of the exits between where you are now and where you want to be. They may be a casualty and just leave, but you got to do your part. And the hardest part is taking that beating, that public beating, because it's painful.
Image Trend speeds up reporting with preset values and helps ensure NFIRS accuracy. And we're on the forefront of the nearest transition, ensuring our firefighters won't be left scrambling with the system switch. For more information, check out Image Trend's Elite Fire solution at imagetrend.com. That's Image Trend Elite Fire at imagetrend.com.
And what's interesting is it would be so nice, right, to think that everyone could come together and have these very sometimes painful conversations where everyone's honest. Let's face it, not everyone's going to do that. But how else are you going to learn, right? So we actually, in the survey, we asked people, free text, where does your fire chief excel? Because we wanted to hear the positive feedback in addition to the negative. And I think there's plenty that people can learn from just reading that list as well. And I just want to hit a couple from the list. Empathy, not stuck in tradition, always know that he has our back, consistent, clear expectations, good strategic planner, communicator. There's a lot more, but I think sometimes if you're not comfortable having that conversation or asking someone directly, sometimes you can just emulate what we're learning about, what's working at other departments. Now, on the flip side, again, this question is, what does your fire chief excel at? Some people answered looking out for himself, kissing ass, taking vacation, golf, things like that. You can also learn a lot from what not to do, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot more. Check those out. But sometimes you just have to ask the question, right?
Right. Chief, I think you made a good point that we're all in this together. So, obviously, being someone who, on the field, it seems like there's always like, hey, it's admin versus the field sometimes, right? There's this disconnect there. But I do like the fact you kind of called out the field, and I've seen this where we in the field complain, but it's also our responsibility to make these issues aware. And my dad always said to me, if you're going to complain, you better have a result or a solution. And I think that's part of our responsibility too. And also not to personally attack. And you mentioned right away when we started it, you've been teaching yourself to just take a breath before you react and respond. And I think that's one thing that's how we in the field can display leadership for the next generation is when that fire chief comes around, let's be amicable. Let's talk about issues, legitimate issues. Take a step back, take a breath, and try to resolve it and work together that way. But I also see where you won't get the feedback from somebody. You'll hear it third or fourth hand. And I guess that backstabbing crap, I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is that we all need to take some responsibility. And I also like the fact you said, hey, if you're chief, listen to the stuff you don't want to listen to, because that's where growth really can happen. And you said you do it 2 or 3 different times to make sure the message is consistent, right? Like, so now I'm going to go back and say, you've also listed some great books that you've learned through the years. You know, we talked about mentors. If I'm a chief listening to this and you're saying, hey, I'm sold, chief. You know, you said first step is get out there and try to get reactions and answers from your field. What are some other things that chief should be doing after reading this?
So you need to study. The books are good. There's also, but the trade magazines like Fire Rescue One and others have good articles with good writers that can give you some insight onto what you're doing. I tell people all the time, I never had an original idea in my life, but I'll take somebody else's and make it fit my need if I have to, right? So that I'm constantly reading. If you were to ask me probably the top 2 books at as chief executive officer level, I would say is Extreme Ownership by Jocko and his partner. And the second one is You're It. It's written by Leonard Marcus and Eric McNulty from the National Preparedness Leadership Initiative in Harvard. Extreme Ownership, hey, don't be trying to hide from the problem. Take it problem, look at it straight in the face and deal with it, okay? Yeah, are you going to get your butt kicked? Sure you are, okay? You're going to get run over by the tank. That's comes with the territory, all right? But you got to start somewhere. The other one, You're It, is as a chief officer, sometimes the events cause you to be in positions where you have to take command and make critical decisions. So on our bread and butter operations, 1 alarm, 2 alarm fire, you know, I got guys, this fire department's been here for over 200 or nearly 200 years. Okay, so yeah, we've been putting out fires before Darryl got here. They'll be putting them out after I'm gone. All right, but it's those incidents that we don't think about, like the Tree of Life shooting here in the city of Pittsburgh. And because I happen to be the only chief officer around at the time in the Department of Public Safety, guess who was in command? Ta-da! You know, the Fern Hollow Bridge collapse, the same thing. You know, you tag You're It, and that's what the book is about. And they reference things like the Boston Marathon bombing and other things where you're just pushed out front and now you got to do something. And certain things you can't say is, oh, that's not my job. That's not going to fly, right? So you got to do something. And the second thing is you have to understand the physiological changes that's going through your body when you get hit with these surprises like this, so that you know how to control those. Another saying that I always tell my students, almost every class, I tell them, no matter what the class is, I tell them, if you're going to take one thing away from class, take this. If you cannot stand up to the challenge, you fall to your highest level of training. That's just simple. So if I have 5 bugle challenges, but I have a scramble level of training, Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, that's a hell of a drop. It's a long way down. So maybe you're not going to get pushed into something like that. But you know, if you do, what's going to be your response? What do you need to know? And that's one of the things that we are trying to address in the revised version of the Executive Fire Officer Program, is that risk reduction is more than just risk from fires. And oh, by the way, despite our best efforts at mitigation and everything, things still happen, and now you got to deal with it.
Yeah, Chief, what do you do physically, mentally to keep yourself prepared?
the reading takes care of the mental side a lot. I listen to music. I like contemporary jazz. I also am not beyond having a cigar and a little sip of bourbon every now and then to help, that help smooth out some of those rough edges.
Just a little
I
stress
have,
in time.
yeah,
Yep.
I have a deep faith in my Christian beliefs, and uh, I believe prayer works. And I will also believe that all prayers are answered. It's just that sometimes the answer is no, and you just have
Got to
to
be
go along.
prepared. You got to be ready for the
Yeah,
answer, whether it's good
be
or
ready
bad,
for
right?
that. Yes. So those are the things. I am full transparency, rebuilding the relationship with my son because of all the things that I did before. It's not as good as it should be. I know he loves me to death. I call him my greatest achievement ever, but our relationship could be better. And so I'm working on that. That's what I'm doing. I also keep a Zettelkasten. You're going to have to Google that.
Okay.
It's called a Zettelkasten. So whenever Janelle says, "Hey, Chief, can you give me do an article for me on strategy and tactics?" I could go to my Zettelkasten, that's German for note box, grab all the notes from everything I've read on that, and sit down and push it together. And maybe in about a day or two, after a little bit of proofreading and editing, taking the four-letter words out, I could present it to Janelle. So
Is it physical or digital?
mine is physical. Mine
Okay.
is analog. I actually write index cards, 4x6 index cards out. Yeah, but there's apps out there like Obsidian and stuff like that you can do it digitally. But I am just an analog type guy. So the draft for this article was all written out by hand. And then I sit back and let it sit for a while. Then when I'm typing it up, everybody's first draft is just garbage, right?
Yeah.
So as
Yeah.
I'm typing it up, then it refines itself and it goes through the process. But yeah.
Yeah. You've done a lot of self-reflection over the last, 30 some years of your career, and it seems to have really paid off for you. Are there things that, you look back that you would do different and you would advise other people to learn from your direction that you would address that challenge? Let's say that.
Two things. One, your family always comes first. Always, always, always. Don't say I'm too busy right now because I got work to do. Leave that stuff in the office. Don't take it home. I paid a heavy price for that. Two, don't be afraid to ask for some help, because because you're have all the bugles, and my assistant chief calls these plungers. He says the more plungers we have, the more crap we got to deal with. And doesn't mean I have to be the best or the smartest, right? I just need to know who is and go get them. Now, I'm not the best firefighter in the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire. I am not the best swift water rescue tech here, high angle rescue tech, hazmat tech, any of that. I'm not the smartest, all right? But I know who people are, and I'm not afraid to go and ask them, and because I know my limitations. So those would probably be the two biggest things I would say. My son probably doesn't care even if I wrote a book or how many articles I write. He's gonna know whether I was there when he had concert band or something like that. That's the stuff that's important.
And if someone's listening to this, or just, well, it's easy for you. You're a born leader. Why don't you debunk that? Leaders are born, or are they made?
I would have to say both, okay? Because there are certain people that some of the characteristics of leadership, like being charismatic and all that kind of stuff, you're born with, but you can emulate any of the people you recognize as good leaders. And I like to use the beginning of the movie We Were Soldiers. Maybe about the first 10 minutes of the movie, you get introduced to various types of leadership. You get introduced to the colonel, who is a student of his craft, looking through history. You see him studying about Vietnam. You see him checking out his equipment. He wants to know the technical details of the Huey helicopter. You have that going on. He's an academic, a scholar, and a practitioner, right? And he always led from the front and led by example. You see Snake, the helicopter pilot, right? Great communicator, out there with his guys. Some kind of reason he bonded with them. And as the guy in the movie says, hey, it's Sunday. You don't have to be training, but you are, and he's having fun with those people. Then you have Sergeant Major Plumley. That's the one I wanted to be like. He was the hardcore dude. Every time somebody say something to him, he just growls at him, right? Because he was just that guy, But at one stage in the movie, he recoups or gets back some troops that had separated from him. And he tells the guy, he looks at this soldier and he goes, today is a good day because you're mine. I got you back. Yeah, I beat you up. I swear at you and everything, but you're mine. So there's all these different types of leadership styles that which one fits you? Who's a good leader that you know of that you can emulate? All right. I can't, like what they say, you can't coach speed, right? No, but I could emulate it and I can try to be it. And I mentioned that in the article, how kids, I remember kids on the basketball court calling themselves Michael Jordan, trying to do what Michael Jordan did. Didn't have the physical capabilities, but that didn't stop them. They still had the heart, so. And you don't need those physical capabilities in leadership. You do need the heart.
Very well said. And thank you so much for sharing your background and your challenges and how you've come through them. And as we saw in the What Firefighters Want is leadership. And again, everybody's to come into the table and needs to step up to the table with it to solve that problem. So thanks for your insight. We're almost done, but we're not. We always put our chiefs and guests and, anyone who comes and visits us, we like to ask them some hot seat questions. We have 4 good ones that we've been asking recently, and I'm going to let her fire it off here, Chief.
All right, Chief, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the fire service today?
A question I ask often, right? And everybody comes up with all these different things. Most of them people will say is money. They need more money. They need more money. They need more money. I don't think is necessarily money. I think that a lot of our challenges that we face, such as mental health and cancer presumption or diversity, equity, and inclusion, is cause we need a change in culture. You got a soft spot right there. I can vomit this up over you all for the rest of the day.
Give us your top 3 points about culture, because I think we might need to do a whole separate podcast about it too.
Okay, I'll give you. So culture has many things, right? It comes from our history. It comes from what we believe in ourselves and our organization. And it's basically beliefs and values are in culture. But another thing about culture that we have to be aware of is the artifacts of our culture, right? So I use this all the time. Oh, we're great leaders here, right? However, if we're going to be progressive and leaders and say, okay, we're all progressive, we're all leaders, we're all about safety, yes. And then I whip out the European style fire helmet and put that on the table, okay? And research has shown it's safer, it provides better protection, it's an all-around better helmet than what we do.
It's more ergonomically balanced. Yep.
I wore one for years in Aliquippa, right? Heads explode when you mention that helmet, and that's an artifact. I'll never wear that helmet. And then I say, okay, let me put it like this. If New York City Fire Department ordered that helmet, MSA wouldn't be able to make enough of them.
Yep.
Because we all got to be like New York City. So that's that. I think our culture needs to change, and our culture changes with leadership, and cultural changes are slow and very painful.
Yeah.
If I started a cultural change here in Pittsburgh, and I hope I did, I will probably never see the fruition of that change. I could just start the turn, and then hopefully my successor will continue, and his successor or her successor keeps going.
Yeah. you've mentioned numerous challenges that you have faced and overcome in your career, but let's kind of go in the last 3 to 6 months. What's a big challenge that you have had, and how did you overcome it?
So the biggest challenge I have right now is diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Pittsburgh Fire Bureau. I have approximately 712 people on the job. Only 4 of them are women. Only 1 African American woman. Currently have a recruit class in that does include 2 females, 1 of them African American. That is a disgrace on any level. However, I can't defend it, right? But I own it. It's my problem. I'm not going to say this is a cultural thing. I could go back to the 60s, the 70s. It doesn't matter, okay? What's matter now is what am I doing about it? So previous administration, they did a barrier study to see why women were avoiding us. And we come up with 3 main things. One was the residency requirement. There used to be a residency requirement that you had to live in the city for a year before you applied. No one's moving to the city of Pittsburgh on the off chance they might apply for a position like that. The second thing was the physical agility test, and we did not change the physical agility test. We altered some things. We used to do the physical agility test. They had to be wearing an SCBA. Well, the whole point of civil service is that you don't have to have any prior experience to get the job.
Mm-hmm.
So people who have to wear an SCBA, unless you are used to wearing an SCBA, SCBAs are designed to be worn over turnout coats, right? Not just over a t-shirt while you're running this test. They could throw you off balance and everything. So we moved to the weighted vest to simulate the weight. The other thing was the Kaiser sled. And that's when you're doing that vertical swing over your shoulder, like you're opening up a roof with an axe. Yeah. When's the last time you tried that?
Yeah.
Now, what's more relevant is a horizontal swing, like you're forcing a door open with irons. So we got rid of the Kaiser sled, got a different machine that simulates that. And the last thing that we found was that women did not know about the job. They weren't familiar with how good of a job it is. So we started a girls camp, and we are going to have our 3rd year of the girls camp coming up in August, introducing high school age kids to come down, spend some time with other female firefighters and see what the job's about. We offered our first written exam, a couple months back since we did the girls camp, and we had several people who finished the girls camp take the test. So awesome. I'm pretty excited about that. So that's one of the challenges. Is it going to work? I don't know.
But you're tackling it.
I'm
that's
going
the
after
whole point. Yeah, you're going after it, and you looked at, all right, what's the data telling me? And it goes back to the whole point of what we've discussed today. Okay, what do I do with this data? First of all, you got to listen to it, hear it, and then do something about it and take action. So I applaud you on that. It sounds like 3 good kind of things that you're developing there to work at alleviating that challenge.
So one of the challenges also is the criticism that comes from the public. If you say diversity, equity, and inclusion, the first thing they think is that you're watering down the process, you're lowering the standards. And that's not true. As far as I'm concerned, DEI means definitely earned it. Okay, so that's where I'm putting that. Coming from the city's EEOC fire chief, I guess.
I would not say that you're EEOC. I think you are EARNED. ED. You know that. You earned it. How about that, folks? So there's some letters to throw behind you.
All right. Next, Chief, who has been the biggest influence on your life?
That had to be my dad. My dad was cut from a different cloth. I mean, he was one of those dads. He would read 3 newspapers a day when we were growing up. 3 different newspapers, and you did not touch that newspaper until he told you he was done with it. Because he walked away from it does not mean he was done with it. But yeah, he was. I'll tell you a story that kind of drives me now. I was about 5 years old, and my parents wanted to buy a house, and this house was not in the hood, you know. And my dad was a Korean War veteran. He's a decorated Korean War veteran. He had 2 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart, you know. And so we go to the VA, and I can still take you to this house right now in Beaver County, you know. And it was nothing special, you know, just a regular house. And well, I'm sitting in there with my parents, and the guy they were talking to leaves for a couple minutes. Then he comes back in and he says, "Well, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we got to turn you down for this loan." And my parents like, "Why?" They both worked. My dad worked in the mill. My mother worked at the bank. You know, what do you mean? They had good credit and all that kind of stuff. And the guy says, "Well, frankly, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Negroes don't live in houses like this." My mother burst into tears. My dad just got up, grabbed both of us, and walked out the door. Right. So I get in the car, and the first thing I do is, "Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, what's a Negro?" 5 years old, I don't have a clue, right?
Yeah.
So as I got older and I came into my own manhood and things, and I would look at my dad, you know, and every once in a while he would drink a little bit more than he should. I'm thinking, I get it. He's drinking because he's pissed off, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't go start throwing bricks through windows, turning cars over, lighting fires, starting a riot and all that kind of. He had a family to feed. He went to work. You know, and the thing he told me when I had that bad fire and was basically crying and whining about how hard I had it, he told me then, he says, "Darryl, you are a Black man in America. You have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And whatever you get, somebody's going to try to steal it, break it, or diminish it." He said, "These are the rules. Now you got to play by the rules, and you play to win or you die." And he says, "I want to know which one you're going to do, and I want to know right now. You got to play to win." And I know the rules. And I try to tell that to these young kids too, and they get all upset. "Well, they're racist." Okay. I said, "Dude, I'm getting ready to take you. How much money you got in your pocket?" "Oh, I got about $5. I said, I'm taking it." "I know you're not." "Yeah, I'm going to take your money." "I don't think so, Chief." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to take your money." "And oh, Chief, we're going to be, I said, "Okay, you won't let me take $5 off of you. Then why are you letting people steal your life?" You got to fight back. Not with these, with this. All that running around with your 9mm and killing people, that ain't doing it, man. Use your brain. That's your weapon of choice. But yeah, so the person that had the most influence was my dad, teaching me to play to win and just play by the rules. Don't break the rules. No, that wasn't allowed. But you still had to do the best you could with what you had.
You, as your dad said, you work hard, right? And you work hard on getting better, and you work hard on improving many aspects of your life, especially your education. And it comes full circle with our final question I'd like to ask the guests, Chief, is, what are you today doing to get better?
I am passionate about being a lifelong learner. Even though I have a terminal degree, I still take courses in leadership and other fire training courses. I'm still maintaining my paramedic certification and stuff like that. We're getting ready for the NFL draft, and TEACS put us out a class on planning for major sporting events and stuff. So I'm trying to get that class brought to the city so that we can get ready for that. And I'm not going to be one of those guys that ever say, "I know enough," because when I do, it's time for me to leave, because I'm a danger to myself and those people around me at that point. And that's just me. I'm always listening, always trying to learn, learning from my mistakes. None of my mistakes have been fatal, and God knows I made a lot of them. But I learned from every last one of them, and I'm not going to make the same ones twice.
Well, appreciate your honesty. I mean, it is about getting better, self-development, trying to look in the mirror first and understand that we don't know everything. And Chief, here you are, decorated Chief, and Really appreciate you stopping by, bringing us your knowledge. And for those that are just, you're just listening to this, you got to take a look at our YouTube page, our Fire Rescue One YouTube page. You need to read Chief's article, firerescue1.com/WFW, What Firefighters Want. I love the article. You got some great books in there. You bestow some great knowledge on us today. So again, thank you so much, Chief. And I also want to say thank you to Image Trend for sponsoring this project of the What Firefighters Want, and also for this episode, and to the IFC and the IPSDI for their support as well in this project. Chief, again, thank you for your insights. Thank you for sharing your story and for being passionate about improvement, which is what we're all about here on Better Every Shift. For those listening, if you do have questions for Chief or for us, you can email us at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. You can go to our YouTube page through firerescue1.com, or just go to the Better Every Shift podcast banner on firerescue1.com. In summary, folks, become a lifelong learner, and never miss the opportunity to try to talk to, inspire, or mentor anybody, because you just never know. As he said, 15 minutes changed his life, and you might be that person that can give someone else that same gratitude and favor. So with that, make sure that you learn something, do something, and share something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.